Hello everyone. We have Sanjeev Agrawal with us today. He is the CEO of CollegeFeed, which is a social platform that works like a matchmaking service for job seekers and new college grads. So a very warm welcome, Sanjeev.
Thank you for having me, Utkarsh.
You are welcome. Sanjeev, tell us exactly what problem is CollegeFeed solving and for whom.
Yeah, so the high-level problem that CollegeFeed is solving is that we think that the process by which college students and young grads get connected to companies is pretty broken. And it hasn't changed for a long, long time. From when I went to college a long time ago, over 20 years ago, to even now. And there are many pieces to it. The way on both sides. The problem is both on the student side and on the employer side. So if we start with the student side, how students without a lot of work experience can present themselves in a way that they can showcase their talents and their skills is one problem. How they discover companies and opportunities that might be the right fit for them is another problem. How they get to connect with the right people at the companies that might be a good fit for them is a third problem. So how do you brand yourself? How do you discover opportunities? And how do you make the connection? Now, on the employer side, very similar things. If you're not Google or Facebook or one of the top 20, 30 companies everybody wants to work for, how do you brand yourself? How do you capture attention, even if you have good jobs? If you're a startup, if you're a medium-sized company, if you're a large company that may not have the same brand. So this notion of branding, discovering and connecting is a two-sided problem. So same thing on the part of employers. If you go to career fairs alone, you may or may not be able to attract the talent you're looking for. And then what other avenues do you have to really reach out to college students across the country? And then finally, even if you do, how do you gain their mind share and connect with them? So the high-level problem we're solving is making this process of branding, discovering, and connecting easy on both sides.
Great. So, but why do you think that the job search process has not changed for you? Any tips on that?
Yeah, so forever, when I graduated, I'll tell you a personal story just to illustrate the point. So I graduated from MIT in 1991 and then 1992 again with a master's. And back then, and then I went to work for McKinsey right out of MIT. But I remember that one of the reasons I was only exposed to a limited number of companies that came on campus, right? And back then, tiny companies like Cisco Systems, like Adobe, because they were tiny companies back then, never came on campus, right? So for me, as a computer science graduate from a good school who had done well in college, to even discover all the people who might be interested in me 20 years ago was a major problem. Because, when you're young and you don't know a lot, I didn't have a huge network, I didn't have anyone really advising me on the types of opportunities available to me. What's happened is that fundamental problem of if I don't know anybody, then doing all the thinking about what kinds of opportunities are available to me. And if I take a non-tech example, if you're an English major, even from a good school and you've done well, you might think that, the only jobs available for you are in journalism. Well, if you have been in industry, you realize, well, that's not the case. There are jobs in PR, there are jobs in communication, there are jobs in social media, there are jobs in customer service. Now, who does that translation for a student and who makes the effort? That part hasn't really changed because the process hasn't changed. It's not as if there aren't websites. There are all kinds of websites out there. There are all kinds of social media networks out there. But when you take it down to an individual level, helping a student tell their story, helping a student discover their options, and then helping a student reach the right people in those companies, that hasn't changed in my mind.
So like you mentioned that there are other options as well. So how is CollegeFeed a little different from other job boards? Or so you
Right.
call? Yeah.
Right. No, it's a great question. First of all, we're not a job board. We don't have any. We don't post jobs on CollegeFeed. Okay. We're not a resume board. our goal is to solve this problem from first principles, if you will, right? And the first principle way of solving this problem, we think, is everything starts with a student profile. And unlike job boards or resume boards, we don't measure success by the number of users that come to our site and register. We measure our success by the number of people who come to our site and register, and then we accept into our network. Because what happens is, ours is not, anybody can join our network, but you can be in two states. You can be waitlisted or you can be accepted. And so the reason we do that is because we want you as a job seeker to really tell your story in a way that is attractive to employers, and we help you do that. But until you do that, you're waitlisted. But once you do that, we do two things. We make the translation of your major and your department and your school into which job domains you might be qualified for. And so when employers come and search, we put you in front of them. The second thing we do is we go find jobs out that we think you might be qualified for, and we go push your profile to those employers. So if you think again about branding, discovering, and connecting, we help you brand yourself because we don't accept you until you do, right? Mm-hmm. So we care. No other network that we know of has this rule that you need to have not just a complete profile, but one that tells your story, right? Second is we proactively go and translate what you have done, the internships you've done, the jobs you've done, the classes you've taken, the work portfolio that you have. So a lot of our belief is that when you're young, you may not have any work experience, but you probably have a lot of work samples. You have a lot of proof points to say, I'm a good coder, or I'm a good speaker, or I'm a good people person, or I'm a good designer, or I'm a good, whatever your skills are, you can demonstrate it through work samples. And so it's a very portfolio-heavy view of how we ask people to present themselves. And once they do, we take it upon ourselves to connect them. So that's the big difference between us and a job board.
Like if we talk about the technology used, how does a profile reaches the interested company, and how is the match done in real time?
Yeah. So we now have enough profiles that we fingerprint profiles. So if you think about once you have a lot of data, and I wish I could show you a demo, maybe I will if you want me to, but when profile N+1 comes into the system, we've seen enough profiles that we can say, okay, this is accepted or waitlisted immediately. And then we can say, this is accepted and should be classified as someone who would be good at customer service and PR and marketing or social media. Or this might be someone who would be a good designer, right? So that's step one. Step two is to then, because we have a massive set of employer relationships, we work with over 1,000 employers who've told us the skills they're looking for, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the other unique things we do with employers is, look, most job descriptions are terrible. Most job descriptions, they're just written terribly. And if you really boil them down, especially for early career people, for people leaving college, if you ask an employer, what are you really looking for? It ends up being, I'm looking for a good C++ engineer in New York. Right? Mm-hmm. But it's going to be a 2-page job description. Why didn't you tell me you were looking for a good C++ engineer in New York? Right? Mm-hmm. So being able to find the real need, which we have gotten from employers. When employers sign up, it's a lot like a dating site. You go and you say, I'm looking for partners that like walks on the beach and red wine and kids. And then somebody else comes in and says, I'm looking for partners that like this, that, and the other. So the matching process is not that dissimilar, because if we've classified someone as a good C++ engineer, and we know they're in New York, and an employer has signed up and told us what they've looked for, it's essentially the match is being made by the closest possible proximity on both sides. Who can we match to what the employers are looking for? But step one is to make sure that everybody's profile that we've accepted and exposed is of high quality.
Sure. So I guess this increases the chance of getting a job significantly.
It's funny because a lot of our students tell us just the act of completing a CollegeFeed profile is valuable, because we force you to think about what it is you want to do, We force you to back up your claim. You know, the number of people who tell us all kinds of great things about how good they are. Everybody tells us they're Steve Jobs. And my point is, okay, if you're Steve Jobs, show me an iPod. Okay? And if you show me an iPod, I'll believe you. So this whole idea of forcing you to think about what it is you want to do and forcing you to back up your claim with facts, with these are the classes I've taken, these are my accomplishments, these are samples of work. If you tell me you're a good writer, you better show me 3 examples. Right? Just telling me you're a good writer doesn't do anything for me. So those are the sorts of things that really help.
So Sanjeev, do you see any pattern between the kind of jobs and skills that mostly attract the employers?
Yeah, you know, it's a great question. So obviously the hard skills ones, the most obvious requirements are in technology and front-end, back-end coding and quality assurance. But even outside of that, you know, finance, accounting, consulting, customer service is a big one. Customer service is really, really interesting because people from multiple majors and domains can go into that.
Yeah, I heard that writing and social media and others are also picking up pace.
Writing, social media, things like what I've also seen is sales and business development is pretty interesting. So those would be the top 10 or 15 domains that are most in demand.
Mm-hmm. So let's discuss about the driving passion, Sanjeev, and why are you passionate about this creating CollegeFeed?
Yeah, so some of it has to do with my own story of how I have kind of found my career. You know, if you ask anybody their story when they're a few years out of college, maybe 10 or 20 years out of college, most people will tell you that they could never have predicted where they will be, right? And I'm not saying that's you need to be able to predict, but I'm saying that at the point when you don't have any work experience, at the point when you don't have any network, at the point when you have no idea of what the world really wants, is the point where we're expecting young people to suddenly become great networkers. We're suddenly expecting them to go from being great students and being scholars and athletes to somehow magically transform into people who know about jobs and who know about what the world needs. And I have a problem with that, not only because of the way my life was. My life turned out okay, but I have 2 kids. I have 2 daughters, 9 and 4. And part of the driving force is looking at them and saying, it would be nice if the world, when they go to college and come out of it, or long before they go to college and come out of it, is a little more, you know, the playing field is a little more level, right? So in India, for example, if you go to IIT, or if you go to, you know, one of the top 10 medical schools, you're okay. But not everybody goes to IIT or a top medical school. So it's not as if these people are not smart. It's not as if these people don't have skills. It's just that there are some very hard decisions made by employers to not look at them. And I have a fundamental problem with that way of doing things because, you know, both things are true. Not everyone who goes to a top school is necessarily in some ways so much superior to someone who doesn't go to a top school.
Sure.
And there are tons of people I know who didn't go to top schools but are really good. So there needs to be a leveling of the playing field on the student side. There needs to be a leveling of the playing field on the employer side. You know, just in the US, there are 500,000 employers that make more than $10 million in revenue every year. And there are hundreds of thousands of startups and companies that could hire college students, but the reason less than 1% of this set hires college students is that they think that the way to hire them is you have to go on campus and you have to fight other people in a career fair and you have to do all kinds of things to capture attention. Well, you know, we live in a world where I can go on Netflix and be told what movies I should watch. I can go to Pandora and be told what music I should listen to. Why isn't there the same capability for jobs? You know, that's the driving passion, to be honest.
So, like, what has been the feedback and response from the employers that you have reached out to?
Yeah, I think uniformly the response has been, again, the quality of our profiles and our students is tremendous. Not just that they are from top schools, but we're able to help employers really shorten the time it takes to evaluate profiles. You know, I'll tell you, I used to post jobs when I was an employer, and when I would post a job, I would get, say, 1,000 resumes. And everyone thinks, oh, wow, I got 1,000 resumes. Well, you know what? That's actually a problem, because only 30 to 50 of them are worth interviewing. Now, if I can say to employers, I will send you the right matching candidates for your jobs and save you a ton of time, effort, travel, and hassle, isn't that just a more fundamentally better process? So there are 4 things employers like about us. 1 is the quality of our students. 2 is the fact it's both a push and a pull. You can go and search, but I will also send you matching profiles. The 3rd thing that they like about us is we're across the country. Even if I'm a large employer, I might go to 50 schools or 100 schools. We have students from 400 schools. So you can still keep going to as many schools as you go, but we can give you the best of the rest from any school you want, right? And the 4th is, think about CollegeFeed making every day a career fair, right? So why should February the 15th between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. be a career fair? What's so special about February the 15th between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m.? What happens on February 14th and February 16th? Shouldn't they be career fair days too? So this idea that more uniform access to more students for employers, more uniform access for on both sides, for students to employers and employers to students all year round, you know, is pretty powerful. So as our network grows, this becomes even stronger. Obviously, our network is still growing. We're a young company. So you know, the more it grows, the more useful it is for employers.
Sure, I think the points mentioned were amazing, actually. But like you mentioned on the website that there's a free part of it as well as a paid part for it. So how is the priced option different from the free option for employers?
Right. Let me break it up into 2 parts. So the thing that so by the way, for students and for career centers, all of it is always free.
Yeah.
Okay? For employers, there are 2 types of products and services. One has to do with what we call sourcing, meaning I go and hire someone, which is a more immediate need. I'm looking for a writer or a C++ engineer. The second is branding and building my pipeline, right? Which is more longer term. So the branding and building my pipeline products have to do with, you know, creating a really good-looking brand page, doing contests and awards, creating communities where you can keep your interns warm, lightweight CRM tools. Those are priced products mostly for larger companies, but also for smaller companies. The free product is basic search. Any employer can go in and register, look through our database, and connect with our students. That's free. What's priced is if you want if you're a large company that wants many recruiters and you want to be able to, for example, send bulk messages, do a search, find 20 candidates, connect with all of them. If you want us to do the work for you, you know, the whole push mechanism where you tell us, keep sending me all great writers for the next 3 months and I'll send you these in buckets of 20, those are some of the paid for services.
Great. Great. So, but like it's totally online. So face-to-face interaction still matters, I guess. So how do companies overcome this challenge?
Yeah, so we don't expect people will hire just by going to CollegeFeed and finding someone, right? We are planning to add tools like video interviews. We are planning to add tools which make it easier to quickly get someone to on the phone. But even then, you know, the interviewing process. If you think about the front end of the funnel, first you find the right candidates that look good on paper. Then you screen them. Then you connect with them. You do a first round interview, second round interview, etc. We haven't decided how far into the full screening process and hiring process we'll get into. We're at the beginning of the funnel where we're making the beginning a lot more efficient. And then We can certainly add tools. So you're absolutely right. I don't expect, unless you're doing a temp job like you're an Odesk, where you will hire someone just by looking at their profile and the price. This is not that way. So totally agree with you that the next steps of the process are still, I call you, I interview you on the phone, I might fly you out and things like that.
Great. So what are the plans for scale? And I guess the site mentions that you accept US and Canada applicants at this point of time.
Yeah.
So what about other markets like India?
No, India is obviously very near and dear to us for all kinds of good reasons. The only reason we haven't opened it up to India is our employer base is in the US and Canada right now, and serving and yes, these employers, some of them are multinational and they want candidates in India, but it would be really nice to have Indian employers, the local. If there was a local demand set up for it, then I'm sure getting supply won't be an issue, given how attractive the user base is. India is by far one of the biggest talent bases we'd love to cover. I think from a scaling perspective, there's a lot to be done just in the US. We have partnerships with dozens of colleges. We want to go to hundreds, if not thousands of them. We want to help career centers expand their footprint and get more employers to hire from their schools. We want to do a good job across different domains, so not just in technology, but in liberal arts and in other fields where we can expand to. We want to help nonprofits. I mean, there's a ton to be done in this area. We're just scratching the surface right now.
It seems interesting for a student, new college grad, I guess. So Sanjeev, tell us about your team as well. Who do you have supporting you, and how and when did this start?
We started the company in late 2012 and launched an alpha in Q1 of 2013 and then a beta in Q2, and we finally launched the product in Q3. My co-founder is a local guy. He's actually Indian as well. He is from the Graduate School of Business at Stanford. Before that, he got a master's in engineering at Carnegie Mellon and worked for Microsoft for many years. His name's Aman Khanna. Aman's my co-founder, and both of us share a very strong. He has a 4-year-old child. He himself has gone through a couple of getting out of school issues in his life, and so we both feel the passion for this. Our team is now about 15 people big. 3 of them are in India, in Bangalore. We have a couple of people in Canada. We have a small team in Australia, just people we have worked with before, and we have a local team. In fact. I was Google's first head of product marketing, and the lady who helped me scale my team from 20 to 200 people now runs employer services for us. We have a very strong belief that bringing industry knowledge and depth into helping students go from being a mechanical engineer to actually what that means in the workplace is really important. You really need to know. You need to come at it from a hiring manager and industry perspective. So a lot of the team that's been built is basically if we had to do this from scratch, from first principles, how would you set it up? Who would you need? What kinds of skills would you need? Then there's a lot of data to play with. So it's essentially at some level becomes a large data science problem, because now you have so many profiles with such rich data. You also have a very strong understanding of what employers are looking for. And it's essentially a big data problem at some level doing the matching. So that's how we're building our team.
Great. Sanjeev, my last question to you would be, what are the biggest challenges of a startup? I'm sure you must have.
Oh, we have tons. I don't know how much time you have, but I'll give you the top few. The biggest challenge in building a two-sided network is always being able to match the right kind of demand and supply. Right, whether it's Airbnb or it's Hotel Tonight or anybody, you at some level have to just keep at it. You just have to keep finding ways to add value to both sides, to students and employers, add value independent of each other until you have enough of both. It's like, again, starting a dating site where you have only men or only women. At some level, you have to find something for them to do before you have enough men and women in order to get the the liquidity going.
Yeah.
So initially, our challenge in this two-sided network had been, a year ago we couldn't pay people to join the site because we didn't have many employers. It's taken
Mhm.
us getting to 1,000+ employers to make it attractive for students to come join. So I would say continuing to grow the network systematically so that it's useful for both sides is by far the biggest challenge from a business perspective. And then, of course, there's the usual startup challenges. Not running out of money is a big challenge. Being able to continue to inspire and motivate your team and build a strong team is always a challenge. Maintaining, and every day, as you know, in a startup, your emotions go like the stock market. You suddenly feel great when you have a great meeting, and suddenly you feel crappy when someone tells you something bad. So just continuing to push, not giving up, and having the grit for continuing. I mean, that's a personal issue for everybody, not just for any startup. But those I would say would be specific to building a two-sided network from scratch. Those are the big problems.
Amazing. I guess I love the insights given by you, and I'm sure the viewers who will watch this will love it as well. So thank you so much for joining, Sanjeev.
Of course, it's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you, Utkarsh.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.